In the previous module, we learned about the impression process with the patient and the use of preliminary and custom impression trays. We now transition to a point where the patient will be fitted with a base plate and bite rims. This appliance will aid the dentist and laboratory in determining the vertical height necessary to produce a well-fitted denture. The first step in this process will be to use the master models made in the previous module to fabricate upper and lower base plates. In this video, the base plates will be made from a light cure material called Triad. In order to prepare for the fabrication of the base plate and bite rim, the laboratory models must first be outlined by the technician, using a colored pencil to indicate the extent of the base plates. This will provide a base plate that will maximize comfort for the patient without being overextended. Prior to proceeding to the next step, the laboratory technician must again inspect the model for undercuts. Undercuts are recessed crevices or cavities on the model that would prevent the base plate from releasing cleanly after curing. Undercuts are manually filled with wax. This process is called blocking out. It removes the undesired undercuts. If undercuts are left untreated, the light cure material could lock into the model and thus break the base plate or model during separation. This process is repeated for both arches. The models are then coated with MRA, or model release agent. This will enable the light cure material to adhere intimately to the model, but permit the material to be easily removed from the master model later. The MRA is applied liberally to the model and even to areas that extend beyond where light cure material may be applied. The exact process is repeated for the maxillary model. Light cure material is removed from its light-sensitive package and readied for application to the model. It should be noted that any unused material should be returned to the original package as to permit its use in the future. The light cure material is adapted to the model and pressed into place, as can be seen in the video. A specialized tool is used to adapt the material into the anatomical details of the model. The laboratory technician may use the same tool to trim excess material from the border, or in this case, a small metal spatula. The technician can be seen applying a small amount of air barrier coating to smooth the light cure material and provide a more uniform surface, and to prevent having a tacky, uncured surface after light curing. The base plate is then placed into the light curing unit and cured per the manufacturer's specified directions. It is important to note that the laboratory technician should be aware of the appropriate height positioning setting for proper curing of the material. Each manufacturer may have their own set of unique directions. As the maxillary arch cures, the same process is repeated for the mandibular arch. When the base plate is cured, it is removed from the model. The laboratory technician observes with the use of the rounded instrument to see that the model has generated a well-defined peripheral roll. The detail will provide the dentist with a realistic perspective of the retention that can be expected of the final denture. When both arches have been removed from the models and inspected by the laboratory technician, they are placed back into the light cure unit, intaglio surface up, intaglio meaning tissue side, for the final cure cycle. As per manufacturer's instructions, many light cure materials require a two-step curing cycle. As before, the laboratory technician must verify the height of the curing unit table per that manufacturer's specifications. Upon completing the curing processes, the base plates are removed from the light curing unit and can be finished using a dental lathe. The dental technician can be seen smoothing the edges of the arches, removing any sharp surfaces. As was completed on the custom tray, the technician uses a cutting wheel to relieve material to accommodate the frenums. The arches are cleaned with water and a brush to be readied for the next step. The dental technician places the base plate back onto the model and applies bite rim wax. Using a set of calipers, he measures the height of the mandibular occlusal rim, which he sizes to 18 millimeters at the mucolabial fold to the incisal edge in the anterior and halfway up the retromolar pads in the posterior. There are many ways a laboratory technician could apply the occlusal rim. This technician uses a sheet wax which he has folded into a roll and heated. This wax is then pressed into place on top of the base plate. A flat plane plate is used to press the occlusal rim onto the wax, and the height is reconfirmed with a caliper. Excess wax on the periphery of the bite rim is trimmed using a laboratory knife. Additional heated wax is spooned in between the occlusal rim and the wax on top of the base plate. This will create an improved mechanical retention of the three components of the bite rim: the base plate, wax, and occlusal rim. The nearly finished bite rim is removed from the model and hand-trimmed with a laboratory knife to remove undesired excess wax. Any sharp edges or rough surfaces are smoothed using a heated spatula and additional wax. The laboratory technician continues to inspect the bite rim to assure that all components are held properly together, and will provide the dentist and patient with a useful bite registration tool. Once the sharp edges are removed from the bite rim, the laboratory technician remounts the appliance to the master model. He inspects its fit to the model and measures with a caliper to determine the proper height has been achieved. Additionally, the technician once again uses a plate to inspect whether the top surface of the bite rim is indeed flat. The next step in preparing the mandibular arch is to apply a flame by using a handheld alcohol torch to smooth the bite rim and provide a finished surface to the wax. The flame simply warms the wax and removes any imperfections. The technician can be seen using the torch to work areas on the bite rim and how it mates to the master model. Additionally, he applies more wax to select areas of the bite rim and reflames. Lastly, the technician removes the bite rim from the master model and rinses it in cold water to chill the wax. A cotton cloth is used to polish the wax under the cold water. This results in a highly finished look that is both favorable to the dentist and patient, providing a non-toxic final polish to the bite rim. Once this step is complete, the technician repeats the same steps for the maxillary bite rim. For the maxillary bite rim, the technician sets his calipers to 22 millimeters and measures from the mucolabial fold to the incisal edge in the anterior and 18 millimeters in the posterior from the mucolabial fold to the molar occlusal plane. He then takes a stick of base plate wax and forms it into an arch that's consistent with the patient anatomy, as can be seen on the master model. The wax is trimmed to the proper length as to best fit the model. The technician continually applies the wax stick to the model, removing wax where appropriate. Once he's modified the wax stick to his liking, calipers are used to establish the height of the material and its current position to the 22 millimeter measurement. The technician then, as was seen previously for the mandibular arch, rolls and heats base plate wax to act as a shim to provide a connection between the bite rim and the base plate wax. This shim step achieves the final 22 millimeter measurement. Once this is complete, all of the other process steps that were seen in producing the mandibular bite rim are repeated.